The flames were eating through my wedding dress when I pulled into the driveway. I'm Meredith, 52 years old, and 48 hours ago I buried the only man I ever loved. Now I was watching 15 years of my life turn to ash on the concrete while my stepdaughter stood there with a gasoline can in her hands and a smile on her face. "What are you doing?" I screamed, jumping out of my car. "Sloane, what are you?" "Getting rid of trash," she said, tossing another armful of my clothes onto the fire. My favorite blue sweater. The leather jacket Gregory bought me for our 10th anniversary. Photos. Books. Everything. Neighbors were coming out of their houses. Mrs. Chun from next door had her phone up, recording. The Johnsons stood on their porch, mouths open. I didn't care. I ran toward the fire, trying to grab something, anything, but the heat pushed me back. "You're insane," I shouted. "Those are my things. This is my house." Sloane laughed. Actually laughed. "Your house? Your house." She reached into her back pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "This is my house now. Dad left everything to me. Every single thing." The paper hit me in the chest and fell to the ground. I picked it up with shaking hands. Last will and testament of Gregory James Patterson. My eyes scanned the words, but they didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. "You were just his mistake," Sloane said, stepping closer. Her breath smelled like coffee and something bitter. A midlife crisis that lasted way too long. But Dad finally came to his senses before he died. He remembered who his real family was. "No." My voice came out broken. "No, Gregory wouldn't." "Oh, but he did." She pulled out a key ring and jangled it in my face. "I changed the locks this morning. And before you get any ideas about calling the police, I already did. They said it's a civil matter. The house is mine. Everything inside is mine. You have 24 hours to take whatever I haven't burned and get out." The world tilted sideways. I grabbed the mailbox to steady myself. "Where am I supposed to go?" I whispered. "Not my problem." Sloane turned back toward the house, then stopped. "Oh, and I froze all the bank accounts. Joint accounts go to the estate, and the estate is mine now. Hope you saved some money of your own." "Oh wait," she smiled again, cruel and cold. "You didn't work the last 5 years because you were too busy playing housewife. Guess you should have thought about that." She walked up the porch steps, my porch steps, and disappeared inside. The door clicked shut behind her. Locked. I stood there in the driveway, smoke stinging my eyes, watching everything I owned burn. The neighbors were still watching. Still recording. Someone would put this on Facebook. On TikTok. The whole neighborhood would be talking about it by dinner. My legs gave out and I sat down right there on the curb. The fire crackled and popped. Something inside it exploded, probably a perfume bottle. The smell made me gag. This couldn't be real. Gregory and I had been married for 13 years, together for 15. He told me he loved me the night before he died. His last words to me were, "You're my everything, Mare." How could he leave me with nothing? I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. The lawyer's office. I needed to call the lawyer. Mr. Brennan had handled Gregory's business for years. He would explain this. He would fix this. But when I unlocked my phone, I saw a text message I'd missed. From a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Patterson, do not sign anything. Do not speak to Sloane's lawyer. Call me immediately. Victor Chun, estate attorney." Before you keep going, I need to ask you something. If you're watching from somewhere in the United States right now, drop a comment and let me know what state you're in. And if this story is already getting crazy, hit that like button and subscribe because trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. This is just the beginning. I stared at the message. Victor Chun. I didn't know any Victor Chun. But something about it felt important. Urgent. Then I looked back at the burning pile in my driveway and saw something that made my blood freeze. At the bottom of that will Sloane had thrown at me, half hidden by smoke damage and ash, was a date. The will was dated exactly 8 weeks before Gregory died. 8 weeks. Right when he started getting sicker. Right when Sloane moved back home to help. And right when Gregory started looking at me like he didn't know who I was anymore. 15 years ago, I met Gregory Patterson at a hospital charity event. I was a volunteer coordinator, 47 years old, and convinced I'd missed my chance at real love. My first marriage had ended badly when I was 30. No kids. No drama. Just two people who realized they'd made a mistake. After that, I threw myself into work and told myself I was fine alone. Gregory was 53, a widower whose wife had died of breast cancer 2 years earlier. He looked lost at that event, standing by the punch bowl like he'd wandered into the wrong party. His tie was crooked. He kept checking his watch. "You can leave, you know," I said, walking up to him. "Nobody's keeping you hostage." He looked startled, then smiled. "Is it that obvious?" "You've been standing in the same spot for 40 minutes, I said. "Either you really love punch or you're afraid to move." He laughed. Actually laughed. "My daughter made me come. She said I needed to get out of the house." "Smart daughter." "Terrifying daughter," he corrected, but his voice was warm. Full of love. "Sloane's 20. She's convinced I'm going to turn into a hermit if she doesn't force me into social situations." We talked for 2 hours that night. He was funny and kind and sad in a way that made my chest ache. He told me about his wife, Eleanor, how cancer had taken her in 6 brutal months. How Sloane had been 18 when it happened, watching her mother waste away. "She took care of Eleanor at the end," Gregory said quietly. "Dropped out of college for a semester to be there. She's been through so much." I should have heard the warning in those words. Should have understood that Sloane would always be the center of his universe, the daughter who sacrificed everything, the girl who could do no wrong. But I was falling in love, and love makes you stupid. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. Quiet dinners. Long walks. He was gentle and patient and made me feel like I mattered. Like I was worth something. Sloane hated me from the start. Nothing obvious at first. Just small things. Forgetting to tell me about family dinners. Calling her father constantly when we were on dates. Posting old photos of her parents on social media with captions like "Miss" when our family was complete. "She's grieving," Gregory always said. "Give her time." I gave her 13 years. At our wedding, Sloane wore black. Not like elegant black. Like funeral black. She sat in the front row with her arms crossed and didn't smile once. When people asked for family photos, she disappeared to the bathroom. "She'll come around," Gregory promised that night, holding me close. "She just needs to see how happy you make me." But happiness wasn't enough for Sloane. She didn't want her father to move on. Didn't want to share him. And I was stupid enough to think that love and patience would change her mind. The years passed. Sloane got married at 25 to a guy named Brad. It lasted 11 months. She blamed me somehow, said I jinxed her by replacing her mother. Gregory defended her. Always defended her. She moved to California for 3 years, and those were the best years of my marriage. Gregory and I traveled. We laughed. We were just us, without the weight of Sloane's resentment hanging over every holiday and birthday. Then Gregory got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor said 6 months, maybe a year with treatment. Gregory took it quietly, like he took everything. He held my hand in the hospital parking lot and said, "I'm sorry, Mare. I'm so sorry." "Don't," I whispered. "Don't apologize. We'll fight this." And we did. For 5 months, we fought. Chemotherapy. Radiation. Experimental treatments. I drove him to every appointment, held his head when he vomited, rubbed his feet when the neuropathy made them burn. Then Sloane came home. "I'm here to help Daddy," she said, hugging him at the airport. She'd gained weight and cut her hair short. Her eyes were hard. "You shouldn't have to go through this without family." Family. Like I wasn't family. Like 13 years of marriage meant nothing. "That's sweet of you, honey," Gregory said, tired from the flight to pick her up. "But Meredith's been taking great care of me." "I'm sure she has." Sloane looked at me over his shoulder. "But you need your daughter now." Your real family. She moved into the guest room that same day. And slowly, deliberately, she began to erase me from my own life. But I didn't see it coming. Not until it was too late. Not until the morning I woke up and realized my husband had started looking at me like I was a stranger. Like I was the enemy. The changes started small. Sloane began making Gregory's breakfast before I woke up. You look tired, Meredith, she'd say sweetly. I thought I'd let you sleep in. She reorganized his medications. I made a chart. Much easier to track this way. She went to his doctor appointments. Dad asked me to come. He needs family there for the hard conversations. Family. Always family. Like I wasn't his wife. At first, Gregory seemed uncomfortable with it. Sloane, Meredith usually comes with me, he'd say. And she can still come, Sloane would answer. But the waiting room is so crowded. Maybe she could wait in the car? We'll fill her in after. Slowly, I was pushed out. Slowly, the space between Gregory and me grew wider. He stopped reaching for my hand at night. Stopped calling me Mare. Started saying Meredith in this formal way, like I was a nurse or a housekeeper. Is everything okay? I asked him one night, 2 months after Sloane moved in. Fine, he said, not looking at me. Just tired. You seem different. Distant. I'm dying, Meredith. His voice was sharp. I'm sorry if I'm not being a good enough husband while I'm dying. It was the first time he'd ever spoken to me that way. Ever. In 15 years. I left the room before he could see me cry. The next morning, I heard Sloane talking to him in his office. The door was cracked open. She's just stressed about money, Dad, Sloane was saying. I heard her on the phone with her sister. Talking about your life insurance. About how much the house is worth. My stomach dropped. I'd never had that conversation. Never. My sister lived in Florida and we barely talked. That doesn't sound like Meredith, Gregory said, but his voice was uncertain. I know it's hard to believe, Sloane said softly. But people change when money's involved. I'm not saying she doesn't care about you. I'm just saying, maybe you should protect yourself. For your own peace of mind. Protect myself how? Talk to a lawyer. Make sure everything's in order. Make sure your assets go where you want them to go. Silence. Then, maybe you're right. I stood frozen in the hallway, my blood turning to ice. She was poisoning him against me. Carefully. Deliberately. And it was working. That afternoon, a lawyer came to the house. Not Mr. Brennan, Gregory's usual lawyer. Someone new. Someone Sloane had found. Just updating some documents, Gregory said when I asked about it. Standard stuff. Why didn't you use Mr. Brennan? Sloane said this guy specializes in estate planning for terminal patients. It's fine, Meredith. Stop worrying. But I was worried. Terrified, actually. I tried to talk to Gregory that night. Really talk. Something's wrong, I said. I feel like you're pulling away from me and I don't understand why. You're imagining things. I'm not. Gregory, please. Talk to me. He sighed, and in that sigh was exhaustion and something else. Something that looked like doubt. Maybe you should give me some space, he said. Sloane and I need time together. Father and daughter. Surely you can understand that. Of course I understand that. But you're my husband. I love you. Do you? The question hung in the air like poison gas. Or do you love what I can give you? I felt like he'd slapped me. How can you even ask me that? Sloane said. I don't care what Sloane said. My voice broke. I've been by your side for 13 years. I've loved you through everything. How can you question that now? Gregory looked at me with tired, cloudy eyes. The medication made him foggy sometimes. Confused. I don't know what to believe anymore, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I just don't know. He went to bed early. Sloane sat with him, reading to him from some book about heaven and angels. I stood in the doorway watching, and felt like a ghost in my own home. The next week, Gregory asked me to sleep in the guest room. I need Sloane nearby at night, he explained. In case I need help. You understand. I moved my things without arguing. What else could I do? 3 weeks later, Gregory stopped getting out of bed. The cancer was spreading faster now. He was on heavy pain medication that made him drift in and out of consciousness. Sloane controlled everything. His food. His meds. His visitors. When my friend Rachel tried to stop by, Sloane turned her away. He's too weak for visitors. Family only. I was barely allowed in his room. 5 minutes, Sloane would say. He tires easily. I'd sit by his bed, holding his hand, and he'd look at me like he was trying to remember who I was. Like I was something from a dream he couldn't quite grasp. I love you, I'd whisper. Sometimes he'd squeeze my hand. Sometimes he'd say nothing at all. One night, I couldn't sleep. I walked past his room and heard Sloane talking to someone on the phone. Don't worry, she was saying, her voice low and satisfied. The lawyer said once he signs, she won't be able to contest it. Dad finally sees she was just after his money. Everything's going exactly the way we planned. I stood there in the dark hallway, my heart hammering. We planned. We. This wasn't just Sloane being a grieving daughter. This was calculated. Deliberate. She'd been planning this from the moment she came home. And I'd been too blind, too trusting, too stupid to see it. The next morning, I tried to talk to Gregory. Really tried. Please, I begged, something's happening that you don't understand. Sloane is manipulating you. I would never hurt you. Never. But his eyes were glazed from medication and he just patted my hand weakly. You're a good person, Meredith, he said. I hope you find happiness. Find happiness. Like he was already saying goodbye. Like I was already gone. He died 4 days later. The morning Gregory died, I wasn't in the room. Sloane said he'd asked for privacy. Said he wanted to sleep. I sat in the kitchen drinking cold coffee and waiting for permission to see my own husband. Then Sloane came down the stairs at 6:43 in the morning, her face composed, her voice steady. He's gone, she said. Daddy passed peacefully in his sleep. I ran up those stairs so fast I almost fell. He was still in the bed, eyes closed, looking smaller than he had when he was alive. I grabbed his hand, but it was already cooling. Why didn't you get me? I screamed at Sloane. Why didn't you call me? It happened fast, she said calmly. He wouldn't have wanted you to see him suffer. Liar. She'd kept me away deliberately. Stolen even those final moments from me. I collapsed on the bed next to him and sobbed into his chest. I'm sorry, I kept saying. I'm so sorry. For what? I didn't even know. For not fighting harder. For not making him listen. For losing him. Sloane let me cry for exactly 10 minutes. Then she touched my shoulder. We need to call the funeral home, she said. And the lawyer. The lawyer. Already thinking about money while his body was still warm. The next 3 days were a nightmare blur. Sloane took over everything. She planned the funeral without asking my opinion. She chose the casket, the flowers, the music. When I suggested Gregory's favorite song, Unchained Melody, the one we danced to at our wedding, she dismissed it. Too romantic, she said. This isn't about you, Meredith. It's about honoring my father. She wrote the obituary. In it, she mentioned Eleanor, his first wife, and Sloane herself. My name appeared once at the end. He is also survived by his second wife, Meredith. Also survived by. Like I was an afterthought. A footnote. The funeral was packed. Gregory had been well loved in the community. Business partners, old friends, neighbors, people from the charity boards he'd served on. They all came. And they all went to Sloane first. I'm so sorry for your loss, they'd say, hugging her. She played the grieving daughter perfectly. Tears at the right moments. Brave smiles. Stories about her childhood that made everyone nod and sigh. I stood to the side like a stranger. When people did approach me, Sloane was there, hovering. Thank you for coming, she'd say, physically stepping between us, taking over the conversation, redirecting attention back to herself. During the service, Sloane gave the eulogy. She talked about Gregory as a father, as Eleanor's husband, as a businessman. She mentioned his love for fishing, his terrible golf game, his addiction to murder mysteries. She never mentioned me. Not once. After the service, Mr. Brennan, Gregory's longtime lawyer, approached me in the parking lot. He looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Patterson," he said quietly, "we need to talk about the estate. There are some irregularities that concern me. Can you come to my office tomorrow?" Before I could answer, Sloane appeared like a shark smelling blood. "Mr. Brennan," she said coldly, "thank you for coming. I'll be in touch with you next week about settling Dad's affairs. Actually, I need to speak with Meredith first. She's the widow, and there are legal matters." "I'm the executor," Sloane interrupted. "Dad appointed me 2 months ago. Whatever you need to discuss, you can discuss with me and my lawyer." "Sloane, this is highly irregular. My father knew what he was doing." Her voice was steel. "Meredith understands. Don't you, Meredith?" Every eye in the parking lot was on us. Mr. Brennan looked at me helplessly. I was too exhausted, too broken to fight. "It's fine," I whispered. "We'll figure it out later." Mr. Brennan's face fell. "Please," he said urgently. "Call me. Tomorrow. It's important." But Sloane was already steering me toward her car. "You look exhausted," she said, loud enough for others to hear. "Let me drive you home. You shouldn't be alone right now." Home. She said it like she still lived there. Like it was her house. The 2-day blur that followed is hard to remember clearly. I stayed in bed mostly. Cried. Stared at the ceiling. Sloane was in and out of the house, making phone calls, meeting with people. I heard her in Gregory's office, opening drawers, moving things. "What are you looking for?" I asked once. "Just organizing Dad's papers," she said without looking at me. "Making sure everything's in order for probate." I was too grief-stricken to question it, too numb to care. On the second night, she came into my room around midnight. "I think you should stay with a friend for a few days," she said. "Give yourself space to grieve. This house has too many memories." "This is my home," I said. "I know. I'm just trying to help." But her smile didn't reach her eyes. The next morning, I went to visit my friend Rachel for coffee. I needed to get out of the house, away from Sloane's constant presence. We talked for 3 hours. Rachel held my hand while I cried. "He was so different at the end," I said. "It was like he forgot he loved me." "Grief does strange things to people," Rachel said gently. When I pulled back into my driveway at 2 in the afternoon, I saw the smoke first. Then the flames. Then Sloane, standing there with that gasoline can and that terrible smile, and I realized that the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. #Chapter 5. You can't do this. I screamed, trying to push past Sloane toward the house. She blocked me, surprisingly strong. "I absolutely can. Read the will, Meredith." I looked down at the paper in my shaking hands. The words swam together, but I forced myself to focus. Last will and testament. Gregory James Patterson. I, being of sound mind and body. There it was. In black and white. Everything to Sloane Marie Patterson. The house. The bank accounts. The investments. The cars. Everything. To my beloved daughter Sloane, who has been my faithful companion and devoted caregiver. Faithful companion. Devoted caregiver. What was I? What had 13 years of marriage made me? "This can't be legal," I said. My voice sounded small. Defeated. "I'm his wife. There are laws." "Community property laws don't apply when there's a valid will," Sloane said. She'd clearly done her research. "And this will is completely valid. Signed by Dad. Witnessed by 2 people. Filed with his lawyer. You have no claim." "He wouldn't do this. Gregory loved me." "Did he?" Sloane tilted her head, pretending to think about it. Because in those final months, he could barely stand to look at you. He told me you'd been pressuring him about money, asking about his life insurance, his investments. That's a lie. Is it? Or is it just a truth you don't want to face? She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear. You thought you could replace my mother. Thought you could slide into her life, take her husband, live in her house, spend her money. But you were always temporary, Meredith. Always. And Dad finally remembered that before he died. The neighbors were still watching. Mrs. Chun, the Johnsons, the Morenos from across the street. All of them seeing me lose everything. All of them recording. Are you guys still with me? Because I know this is heavy, but I promise you, this story is going somewhere you won't expect. If you're invested in this, hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now because what happens next is going to blow your mind. Trust me. A police car pulled up to the curb. 2 officers got out, looking annoyed. Someone called about a disturbance. The older one said, Yes, officer, I did. Sloane's voice changed instantly. Sweet. Concerned. This is my house. I inherited it from my father who just passed away. This woman is my stepmother, and I've asked her to leave, but she's becoming aggressive. That's not, I started. Ma'am, the younger officer said to me, do you live here? Yes. I've lived here for 13 years. This is my home. My husband just died and she's. Do you have documentation showing ownership? It's in my husband's name, but I'm his wife, so. She has a will, Sloane said smoothly, handing the officer a copy. Legal ownership transfers to me as of my father's death 2 days ago. The officer scanned the document. Looked at me with something like pity. Ma'am, this is a civil matter. You'll need to work it out with lawyers. If the house is in her name now and she's asking you to leave, you need to leave. But my things. Take what you need now. You can arrange to get the rest later. I already burned most of her things, Sloane said. She actually said it. Admitted it. But there are some boxes in the garage she can have. You burned my belongings? The older officer looked uncomfortable now. She told me to, Sloane lied. Yesterday. She said she didn't want anything from this house. That it was too painful. I was just honoring her wishes. That's not true. I shouted. Ma'am, calm down, the younger officer said. You need to leave the property now, or we'll have to remove you. I looked at the officers. At Sloane's satisfied smile. At the neighbors whispering. At the smoke still rising from what was left of my life. Fine, I said. I'll go. I walked to the garage on numb legs. Sloane followed me, making sure I didn't take anything she didn't approve. There were 3 cardboard boxes on the floor. Inside, some old books, a few framed photos she didn't want, random kitchen items. Nothing of value. Nothing that mattered. My wedding ring was on my finger. My purse was in my car. I had the clothes on my back. That was it. That was everything I had left. Where will you go? Sloane asked. Not caring. Just curious. Away from you, I said. Good. And Meredith? She leaned close. The bank accounts are frozen pending probate. So whatever money you think you have access to, you don't. Hope you saved something on your own. Oh, wait. She laughed. You quit your job 5 years ago to take care of Dad. Funny how that works out, isn't it? She was right. I hadn't worked since Gregory got sick. We'd agreed I'd stay home to care for him. I'd depleted my own savings months ago on medical supplements and treatments insurance didn't cover. I had $347 in my personal checking account. That was it. I loaded the boxes into my car. The officers watched to make sure I left. As I opened my car door, Mrs. Chun called out, Meredith. You can stay with us if you need. She's fine, Sloane interrupted. She has family. Don't worry about her. I didn't have family. My parents were dead. My sister and I hadn't spoken in 2 years after a fight about something stupid I couldn't even remember now. I got in my car and drove away from the only home I'd known for 13 years. In my rearview mirror, I saw Sloane standing in the driveway, arms crossed, watching me go. I drove aimlessly for an hour before pulling into a gas station parking lot. I sat there with the engine running, trying to figure out what to do next. Where to go. How to survive. My phone buzzed. The text message again. The one I'd seen earlier. Mrs. Patterson, do not sign anything. Do not speak to Sloane's lawyer. Call me immediately. Victor Chen, estate attorney. Below it was a phone number. A local area code. I stared at it for a long time. Gregory had never mentioned anyone named Victor Chen. I'd never heard that name in 15 years. But something about it felt real. Important. And I had nothing left to lose. I called the number. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. Voicemail picked up. A man's voice, smooth and professional. You've reached Victor Chen of Chen and Associates. Please leave a detailed message and I'll return your call as soon as possible. My voice shook as I spoke. Mr. Chen, this is Meredith Patterson. I don't know who you are or how you got my number, but I lost everything. My husband died 3 days ago and his daughter took everything and I don't know what to do and I broke down. Couldn't finish. Just sobbed into the phone like a pathetic, broken woman. I hung up and dropped the phone in my lap. Stupid. It was probably a scam anyway. Someone who'd seen the obituary and wanted to prey on vulnerable widows. I drove to the cheapest motel I could find. $49 a night. I could afford maybe 5 nights, and then I'd be homeless. The room smelled like cigarettes and pine sol. The bedspread had suspicious stains. The TV was bolted to the dresser. But it was shelter. It was something. I fell onto the bed and cried until I had no tears left. Then I just lay there, staring at the water-stained ceiling, thinking about how I'd gotten here. How I'd lost everything. My phone rang at 6 in the morning. I grabbed it without looking, expecting Rachel or maybe Mrs. Chun. Mrs. Patterson? A man's voice. Calm. Professional. This is Victor Chen. I got your message last night. I'm very sorry for your loss. How did you get my number? I asked, my voice hoarse from crying. Your husband gave it to me. 10 years ago. A pause. Mrs. Patterson, I've been waiting for you to call. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Sloane has been lying to you. About everything. Your husband didn't leave you destitute. He protected you. Protected both of you from this exact scenario. But I need to see you immediately. Where are you? I told him the motel name. He was quiet for a moment. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't talk to anyone. Don't sign anything. Don't even call Sloane. Can you do that for me? Why should I trust you? Because your husband trusted me with his life's most important secret. And because I'm the only person who can prove that Sloane committed fraud. His voice hardened. She's not just taking your inheritance, Mrs. Patterson. She's going to prison. And you're going to get everything back. Every single thing. I promise you that. He hung up before I could respond. I sat up in that terrible motel bed, my heart pounding, and for the first time in 3 days, I felt something other than grief and despair. I felt hope. And underneath that hope, burning bright and hot and fierce, I felt something else. Rage. 2 hours felt like 2 years. I showered in that tiny motel bathroom, scrubbing my skin until it hurt. Put on the same clothes from yesterday because they were all I had. Stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. Red eyes. Hollow cheeks. Hair that needed washing again already. 3 days ago, I was someone's wife. Now I was nobody. At 8:17, there was a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw a man in a dark suit. Asian, maybe 40, carrying a leather briefcase. He looked expensive. Professional. Nothing like the cheap lawyers whose commercials played at 2 in the morning. I opened the door. Mrs. Patterson. He extended his hand. Victor Chen. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. His handshake was firm, confident. His eyes were sharp and kind at the same time, if that was possible. I didn't agree to anything, I said. I just don't have anywhere else to turn. That's fair. He glanced around the motel room, his expression carefully neutral. May I come in? I stepped aside. He walked in, set his briefcase on the small table by the window, and waited for me to sit on the bed before he took the chair. I'm going to tell you some things that will sound impossible, he said. But I need you to hear me out completely before you react. Can you do that? I nodded. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. A thick one. 10 years ago, your husband came to me with a problem. His daughter Sloane had tried to forge his signature on a loan document. She wanted $50,000 for a business venture. When Gregory refused to lend it to her, she forged the paperwork and took it to a bank. My stomach tightened. What? He found out before the bank processed it. He paid off the loan quietly to avoid criminal charges against her. But it scared him. He realized Sloane had a serious problem with money and boundaries. So he came to me. Victor pulled out a document. This is the real will. The one your husband actually wanted. The one he signed in my presence, with witnesses who had no connection to Sloane. I took the paper with trembling hands. Read the first lines. I, Gregory James Patterson, being of sound mind and body, do hereby leave 80% of my estate to my beloved wife, Meredith and Patterson. The words blurred. I don't understand. Sloane showed me a different will. She had your husband sign it while he was on heavy pain medication, 8 weeks before he died. She told him it was a medical power of attorney. He was barely coherent at that point. That's illegal. Extremely. It's called undue influence and fraud. And we can prove it. Victor pulled out more papers. Your husband knew something like this might happen. So he did something very smart. He video recorded depositions. Multiple sessions over the last 10 years, updating them as his health changed. In these videos, he explicitly states his wishes, his love for you, and his concerns about Sloane's behavior. I couldn't breathe. Why didn't he tell me? He was protecting you. If you'd known about the videos or the real will, Sloane might have sensed something was wrong. He needed her to think she'd won, to feel confident enough to make mistakes. Victor's voice softened. He loved you very much, Mrs. Patterson. Everything he did was to keep you safe. Tears ran down my face. I didn't wipe them away. There's more. Victor pulled out another document. Your husband kept detailed records of Sloane's financial manipulation over the years. Forged checks. Unauthorized credit cards in his name. Cash withdrawals she claimed were for his medication but that he never received. We're talking about $80,000 in theft over a 5-year period. Oh my God. She's not just losing the inheritance. She's facing criminal charges. Wire fraud. Elder abuse. Forgery. If convicted, she's looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself. Why now? I asked. Why did you wait until after he died? Why didn't you stop this before? Because your husband asked me to wait. He wanted Sloane to have one last chance to do the right thing. To honor him without being forced. He hoped that grief might change her. Make her see what she was doing. Victor's expression darkened. But she burned your clothes in the driveway. She threw you out of your own home. She showed us exactly who she is. I thought about Gregory in those final weeks. Looking at me like a stranger. Pulling away. Had he known what was happening? Had he been aware of Sloane's manipulation? The medication made him confused, Victor said, reading my mind. But he had lucid moments. And in those moments, he was very clear about what he wanted. You were his priority. Always. What happens now? My voice was barely a whisper. Now we go to your house. With the police and the real will. We remove Sloan and restore you to your rightful place. He checked his watch. I've already contacted the district attorney's office. They're very interested in Sloan's activities. I've also filed an emergency motion to freeze all estate assets until this is resolved. As of 1 hour ago, Sloan can't access any of Gregory's money. A wild, hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat. She's going to lose her mind. Good. Victor's smile was cold. She should have thought about consequences before she committed multiple felonies. He stood and offered me his hand. Are you ready to take your life back, Mrs. Patterson? I looked at his hand. Thought about everything I'd lost. Everything Sloan had stolen. The way she'd smiled while burning my wedding dress. The way she'd erased me from Gregory's funeral. I thought about Gregory loving me enough to plan for this. To protect me even after death. And I thought about justice. I took Victor's hand and stood up. Let's go, I said. Victor drove a black Mercedes that smelled like leather and expensive cologne. We didn't talk much on the way to my house. He made phone calls. Talked to lawyers in that rapid-fire legal language I couldn't follow. Confirmed that everything was in place. I sat in the passenger seat and watched my neighborhood approach. The trees I'd driven past for 13 years. The corner store where Gregory bought lottery tickets every Friday. The park where we'd walked every evening before he got sick. Home. 2 police cars were already parked on the street when we arrived. Victor had arranged it all. 4 officers standing on the sidewalk, waiting. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unbuckle my seatbelt. You don't have to go in, Victor said gently. I can handle this. No. My voice was stronger than I felt. I need to see her face. We walked up the driveway together. The same driveway where my belongings had burned 2 days ago. There were still scorch marks on the concrete. Victor knocked on the door. My door. The door I'd walked through 1,000 times carrying groceries, coming home from work, returning from the hospital with Gregory. Sloan opened it. She was wearing one of my robes. My favorite one. The silk one Gregory had bought me for Christmas 3 years ago. Her smug expression vanished when she saw the police. What's this? She demanded. Sloan Patterson? Victor's voice was all business now. Professional ice. I'm Victor Chun, estate attorney for Gregory Patterson. I'm here with law enforcement to inform you that you're occupying this property illegally. Excuse me. Sloan's face flushed red. This is my house. I have a will. You have a fraudulent document that you coerced a dying man into signing. Victor pulled papers from his briefcase. This is the actual last will and testament of Gregory Patterson, properly executed and filed 10 years ago. In it, he leaves 80% of his estate to his wife Meredith. The will you presented was signed under duress while Mr. Patterson was heavily medicated and unable to understand what he was signing. Sloan's eyes went wide. That's ridiculous. Dad knew exactly what. We have video evidence. Victor pulled out a tablet and turned it toward her. Would you like to see it? He pressed play. Gregory's face filled the screen. This was from before he got sick. He looked healthy. Clear-eyed. Sitting in what looked like Victor's office. My name is Gregory James Patterson, his recorded voice said. I'm making this statement of my own free will, witnessed by my attorney Victor Chen and 2 independent witnesses. I want to be very clear about my wishes. Sloan went pale. My daughter Sloan has a problem with money and boundaries, Gregory continued on the video. She's tried multiple times to manipulate me into giving her access to my assets. I love her, but I can't trust her. If anything happens to me, I want my wife Meredith to receive the majority of my estate. She's the love of my life. She's earned it. And Sloan needs to learn that she can't manipulate her way through life. The video ended. Sloan stared at the blank screen. Her mouth opened and closed but no sound came out. Furthermore, Victor continued, we have documentation of your financial crimes against your father over the last 5 years. Forged checks. Unauthorized credit card use. Elder financial abuse. The district attorney's office will be filing charges within the week. No. Sloane's voice came out strangled. No, you can't. This isn't. One of the officers stepped forward. Miss Patterson, we have a court order removing you from this property. You need to gather your personal belongings and leave immediately. This is insane. Sloane shouted. She looked at me for the first time since opening the door. You did this. You scheming little. Watch your language, the officer warned. She's trying to steal my inheritance. Sloane's voice rose to a shriek. My father left everything to me. She's a gold digger who... Ms. Patterson. Victor's voice cut through her hysteria like a knife. Every word you say right now can and will be used against you in criminal proceedings. I strongly suggest you stop talking and call a lawyer. Sloane's face crumpled. For just a second, she looked genuinely devastated. Lost. Then the mask came back. Hard. Hateful. Fine, she spat. But this isn't over. Actually, it is. Victor handed her another document. This is a restraining order. You're to have no contact with Mrs. Patterson. You're not allowed within 500 feet of this property. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Sloane snatched the paper, her hands shaking with rage. It took her 40 minutes to pack. The police watched to make sure she only took her own belongings. She tried to take some of Gregory's things, his watch, his wedding ring, but Victor stopped her. Estate property, he said calmly. You'll get your 20% inheritance after probate. Minus what you owe for the money you stole, of course. I didn't steal anything. We have bank records that say otherwise. And video of you forging your father's signature. Would you like to see that too? Sloane's face went from red to white to green. She looked like she might vomit right there on the porch. Get out, she whispered to me. You won. Congratulations. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, I said. My first words to her since she'd opened the door. I'm sad. For your father. For what you became. For all the years you wasted on hate. She flinched like I'd hit her. You could have had a family, I continued. You could have had a mother who loved you. Instead you chose this. You chose to destroy everything good in your life because you couldn't let go of pain. I stepped closer. I feel sorry for you, Sloane. I really do. Don't. Her voice broke. Don't you dare pity me. Too late. She grabbed her suitcases and stumbled down the porch steps. At her car, she turned back one more time. He loved me more, she said. Like a child. Like it mattered. He always loved me more. Maybe, I said. But he trusted me. And in the end, that mattered more. She drove away with tears streaming down her face. I stood in the doorway of my house, and watched her go. Victor touched my shoulder gently. Are you all right? No, I said honestly. But I will be. The police left. Victor stayed for another hour, walking me through paperwork, explaining what would happen next. The criminal investigation. The probate process. The restoration of my access to bank accounts. It'll take a few months to settle completely, he said. But you're going to be fine. Gregory made sure of that. After he left, I walked through the house alone. Sloane had changed things. Moved furniture. Taken down photos of me and Gregory and replaced them with old pictures of her and her mother. Like she'd been trying to erase 15 years of history. I put everything back. Slowly. Carefully. In Gregory's office, I found where Sloane had been shredding documents. I picked up one piece, barely legible. It was from a psychiatrist. Sloane's name at the top. Words like personality disorder and therapeutic intervention recommended. She'd been sick. Actually sick. And Gregory had known. Had tried to help her. But she'd refused. I threw the shredded papers away and sat at Gregory's desk. Thank you, I whispered to the empty room. To my husband's ghost. To the man who'd loved me enough to protect me even from the grave. Thank you for everything. That night, I slept in my own bed for the first time in 3 days. And I didn't dream about fire or loss or betrayal. I dreamed about Gregory, young and healthy, smiling at me across a punch bowl at a hospital charity event. "You can leave, you know," I said in the dream. "Nobody's keeping you hostage." "I don't want to leave," he said. "I want to stay with you. Always." When I woke up, the sun was streaming through the windows and my face was wet with tears. But they weren't sad tears anymore. They were grateful ones. 3 weeks passed before I found the letter. Victor had been right about everything. The bank accounts were unfrozen. The house was legally mine. And the district attorney's office had filed charges against Sloane. 5 counts of fraud. 3 counts of elder abuse. 1 count of forgery. Her bail hearing was set for next Monday. I tried not to think about it. Tried not to imagine her in an orange jumpsuit, standing before a judge. She'd brought this on herself, I knew that. But there was still a part of me, the part that remembered her as a grieving 20-year-old who'd just lost her mother, that ached for what she'd become. The letter was in a sealed envelope inside Victor's files. He came to the house on a Tuesday afternoon with his briefcase and a strange expression on his face. "There's something Gregory left for you," he said. "He instructed me not to give it to you until everything was settled. Until Sloane was out of the house and you felt safe again." He handed me a cream-colored envelope. My name was written on the front in Gregory's handwriting. Meredith. Just that. Just my name. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was 3 pages long. I read it standing in the kitchen while Victor waited quietly in the living room. "My dearest Mare, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm so sorry. I wanted more time with you. More mornings. More walks. More terrible jokes that made you roll your eyes and laugh at the same time. I need you to know something. In those final weeks, when I seemed distant and cold, I wasn't myself. The medication, the pain, the fear, it all clouded my mind. But underneath the confusion, I always knew who you were. I always loved you. I knew what Sloane was doing. Not at first, but eventually. I could see her manipulating situations, poisoning me against you. And I was too weak to fight it. Too tired. Too sick. That's my greatest shame, Mare. That I let my daughter hurt you. That I didn't protect you better while I was alive. But I'm protecting you now. Victor has everything you need. The real will. The evidence of Sloane's crimes. The videos explaining my wishes. You'll be taken care of. I promise. I know you're angry with her. You have every right to be. She's done terrible things. But I need to tell you something about my daughter that might help you understand. Sloane wasn't always like this. When she was little, she was kind and gentle. She loved helping people. She wanted to be a veterinarian because she couldn't stand to see animals suffer. Then her mother got sick. And something in Sloane broke. She watched Eleanor waste away for 6 months. Watched cancer steal everything from a woman who'd been vibrant and strong. Sloane was 18. She should have been starting college, going to parties, falling in love. Instead, she was changing bedpans and administering morphine and holding her mother's hand while she screamed in pain. It changed her. Made her hard. Suspicious. Angry at the world. Then, 6 years later, she fell in love with a man named Brad. I thought maybe love would heal her. Make her soft again. But Brad left her for an older woman. Someone his mother's age. The betrayal destroyed what was left of Sloane's trust. When I married you, she saw her worst nightmare coming true again. An older woman taking someone she loved. In her broken mind, you were the woman who'd stolen Brad. And her mother. And me. All rolled into one. I'm not excusing what she's done. She made her choices. But pain makes people do terrible things. And Sloane has been in pain for a very long time. In the safe in the garage, you'll find something I set aside for her. The code is our wedding anniversary. Inside is a trust fund. $200,000. It's conditional. She can only access it if she completes a year of intensive therapy and demonstrates genuine change. I know you'll want to use that money for something else. Anything else. But I'm asking you, as my final request, to honor this. Not for her sake. For yours. Revenge might feel good in the moment, Mare. But bitterness is a poison that only hurts the person carrying it. Don't let Sloane's cruelty turn you into someone hard and vengeful. Stay who you are. Stay kind. That's what I loved most about you. Your softness in a hard world. Don't let her take that from you. I love you. I've always loved you. From that first night at the punch bowl until my last breath, you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Live well, my darling. Live happy. And when you're ready, love again. You have so much love to give. Don't waste it on grief. Yours always and forever, Gregory. I read the letter 3 times. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and cried until I couldn't breathe. Victor found me like that 20 minutes later. He didn't say anything. Just handed me tissues and waited. Did you know about this? I finally asked, pointing to the letter. About the trust fund? Yes. Gregory set it up 5 years ago. Why didn't you tell me? Because he asked me not to. He wanted you to read his words first. To understand his reasoning. I looked at the letter again. At Gregory's handwriting. At the water stains where my tears had fallen. She doesn't deserve this, I said. No, Victor agreed. She doesn't. But you do. You deserve peace. And that money is Gregory's way of giving it to you. How is giving her money giving me peace? Because it's not about her. It's about you. About honoring your husband's final wish. About proving that Sloane didn't win. She didn't make you bitter or cruel or vengeful. You're still the woman Gregory fell in love with. Victor leaned forward. That's the real victory, Meredith. Not the house or the money or watching her go to prison. The real victory is staying yourself. I thought about that for a long time. That afternoon, I went to the garage. Found the safe behind some old paint cans. Entered the code, our wedding anniversary, like Gregory said. Inside was the trust fund documentation. And underneath it, another envelope. This one addressed to Sloane. I held it for a long time. Wondering if I should read it. Wondering if I should burn it. Instead, I called Victor. What happens if I give this to her? I asked. During the criminal trial? Her lawyer could use it as evidence of Gregory's love for her. It might help her case. And if I don't give it to her? No one would ever know it existed. I looked at the envelope. At my stepdaughter's name written in her father's shaking hand. Gregory wanted her to have it, I said. Yes. Then she gets it. After the trial. After she serves whatever sentence she gets. When she's ready to hear what her father wanted to say. You're a better person than most, Victor said quietly. No, I corrected. I'm just trying to be the person Gregory believed I was. I put the letter back in the safe. Locked it. Walked back into the house that was finally truly mine. And I started planning my next chapter. The one without Gregory. Without Sloane. Without the weight of betrayal and loss. The one where I got to be just Meredith again. Whoever that was. I raised my wine glass to the darkening sky. Thank you, I whispered. To Gregory. To the universe. To whatever force had carried me through the worst months of my life. Thank you for teaching me how to be strong. And thank you for reminding me how to be soft. The night air was warm. The crickets sang. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. And I sat there in my garden, in my house, in my life, and felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Contentment. Not happiness exactly. Not yet. But the promise of it. The possibility. And that was enough. A year and a half later, I got the call from Victor. Sloane's being released next week, he said. She's completed all the therapy requirements. The parole board was impressed with her progress. Already. Time had moved strangely since the trial. Some days felt like years. Others disappeared in a blink. Good behavior. Genuine rehabilitation. Her therapist wrote a very compelling letter. Victor paused. Are you ready for this? Was I? I didn't know. Sloane and I had exchanged a few letters over the months. Short ones. Carefully worded. She talked about therapy and what she was learning. I talked about the garden and the book club. We never mentioned the past. Never addressed the fire or the locks or the things she'd screamed at me in the driveway. It was like we were strangers being polite to each other. Which, in a way, we were. I'm as ready as I'll ever be, I said. The trust fund is available whenever she wants it. But there's a condition Gregory built in that I haven't told her about yet. What condition? She has to meet with you. Face to face. And she has to hear her father's letter. My stomach clenched. Victor. It was his final request, Meredith. He wanted his daughter to hear his words. To understand that he loved her despite everything. And he wanted you to be the one to give them to her. Why me? Because he believed you were strong enough to do it with grace. I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. Strong enough. Was I? The meeting was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at Victor's office. Neutral ground. I arrived early, clutching the envelope with Gregory's letter inside. My hands were sweating. My heart was racing. I hadn't seen Sloane in almost 2 years. She walked in at exactly 2 o'clock. Prison had changed her. She was thinner. Her hair was shorter. She wore clothes that didn't fit right, donated probably from some halfway house program. But her eyes were different. Clearer. Less angry. She saw me and stopped. Froze. Hi, I said. Because someone had to say something. Hi. Her voice was small. Uncertain. Nothing like the screaming, hateful woman who'd burned my clothes. We sat across from each other at Victor's conference table. He sat at the head, a silent referee. Thank you for coming, Sloane said. I wasn't sure you would. Your father asked me to, I said honestly. That's the only reason I'm here. She flinched but nodded. That's fair. Victor cleared his throat. Sloane, your father left you a trust fund. $200,000. But before you can access it, he requested that you hear a letter he wrote. Meredith has agreed to read it to you. Sloane's eyes filled with tears immediately. He left me money? After everything I did. He loved you, I said simply. That never changed. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Started to read. Gregory's words filled the room. His love for his daughter. His understanding of her pain. His hope for her healing. His forgiveness. By the time I finished, both of us were crying. Sloane put her face in her hands and sobbed. I don't deserve this, she choked out. I don't deserve any of it. No, I agreed. You don't. But your father gave it anyway. Because that's what love does. She looked up at me, mascara running down her face. I'm so sorry, Meredith. For everything. For being cruel. For trying to destroy you. For, her voice broke. For making his last days miserable. I know, I said. And I did. I could see it in her eyes. Real remorse. Real regret. Can you forgive me? She whispered. I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. Didn't mean letting her back into my life. Didn't mean we'd be friends or family. But it meant letting go. Releasing the rope I'd been holding for so long. The one that kept me tied to anger and pain. I'm working on it, I said. I'm not there yet. But I'm trying. For your father. And for myself. Sloane nodded. That's more than I deserve. She signed the paperwork for the trust fund. Victor explained the conditions. Continued therapy, regular check-ins, proof of using the money responsibly. Before she left, she stopped at the door and turned back to me. I hope you find happiness, she said. Real happiness. The kind my dad would want for you. I hope you find peace, I replied. The kind your dad wanted for you. She left. And I sat there in Victor's office, feeling lighter than I had in years. How do you feel? Victor asked. Free, I said. And I meant it. Life moved forward after that. Sloane and I didn't become friends. Didn't see each other. But I heard updates through Victor. She got a job. Started therapy regularly. Was slowly rebuilding her life. And I rebuilt mine. I went back to school and got certified as a volunteer coordinator again. Started working part-time at a hospice, helping families navigate the impossible journey of losing someone they loved. It felt right. Using my pain for something good. Helping others the way I wished someone had helped me. I dated a little. Nothing serious. But it was nice to remember I was still a woman. Still alive. Still capable of feeling butterflies and hope. Mrs. Chen's son set me up with his colleague, a widower named Tom who made terrible jokes and loved mystery novels and reminded me, just a little, of Gregory. We took things slow. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people who'd survived loss learning to live again. On what would have been my 16th wedding anniversary with Gregory, I visited his grave. I brought sunflowers, his favorite. Sat on the grass beside the headstone and talked to him like he was still there. I did what you asked, I said. I gave Sloane the letter. The money. A second chance. I don't know if she'll use it right, but I tried. I really tried. The wind rustled through the trees. A bird sang somewhere nearby. And I'm okay now. Not perfect. Not healed completely. But okay. I traced his name on the stone with my finger. I'm living, Gregory. Not just surviving. Actually living. Like you wanted. I told him about Tom. About the hospice work. About the garden that had grown bigger than I'd planned, spilling over with vegetables I gave away to neighbors. I think you'd be proud of me, I whispered. I think you'd be happy that I didn't let what happened make me bitter. That I chose kindness even when it was hard. Before I left, I placed the sunflowers on the grave and said one more thing. I'll always love you. But I'm letting go now. Not of the memories. Not of what we had. But of the grief. Of the anger. Of everything that's been holding me back. I stood up, brushing grass off my jeans. Thank you for protecting me. For loving me. For teaching me that the strongest thing you can do is choose softness in a hard world. I walked back to my car feeling lighter than air. That night, Tom took me to dinner. Nothing fancy. Just a quiet restaurant with good pasta and candles on the tables. You seem different tonight, he said. Happy. I am, I said. And it was true. We talked about everything and nothing. He made me laugh with a story about his disastrous attempt to install a ceiling fan. I told him about the book club's latest drama. Someone had accidentally revealed the ending before everyone finished reading. It was normal. Simple. Easy. And for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel guilty for enjoying myself. When Tom dropped me off at home, he walked me to the door like a perfect gentleman. I had a nice time, he said. Me too. Maybe we could do it again? Next week. I looked at him. Really looked. At his kind eyes. His nervous smile. The hope in his voice. And I thought about Gregory's letter. Live happy. Love again. You have so much love to give. I'd like that, I said. He kissed my cheek and left. I went inside, made tea, and sat on the back porch. The garden was beautiful in the moonlight. Thriving. Growing. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. How was the date? Good, I typed back. Really good. 3 heart emojis appeared immediately. Then, Gregory would be happy for you. I know, I replied. He told me to do exactly this. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. Listened to the night sounds. The crickets. The rustle of leaves. The distant hum of traffic. Somewhere across town, Sloane was probably in her small apartment, working on her own healing. Fighting her own demons. Trying to become someone her father would be proud of. I hoped she made it. Really hoped it. Not for my sake, but for hers. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to be more than their worst moments. And if she didn't make it, if she fell back into old patterns, that wasn't my responsibility anymore. I'd done what Gregory asked. given her the tools. The rest was up to her. I'd learned something important over the last 2 years. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. You can't force healing. You can't make someone choose goodness. All you can do is choose it for yourself. Every single day. In big ways and small ways. In forgiveness and boundaries. In hope and realism. Choose softness without being weak. Choose strength without being cruel. Choose to move forward without forgetting where you've been. That's what Gregory had done for me. Not just with the money or the will or the legal protections, but with his final letter. His final lesson. Don't let pain win. Don't let betrayal turn you into something ugly. Stay who you are. And I had. Despite everything. Despite the fire and the locks and the screaming. Despite watching my life burn in a driveway while neighbors recorded it for social media. I'd stayed soft. Stayed kind. Stayed myself. That was the real inheritance. Not the house or the bank accounts. But the strength to choose grace over vengeance. Love over hate. Life over bitterness. Before you go, I want to ask you something. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have given Sloane that second chance? Would you have honored Gregory's wishes even after everything she did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I'd really love to hear your perspective on this. And if this story meant something to you, if it made you think or feel or see things differently, please share it. You never know who needs to hear that forgiveness is possible. That you can survive betrayal and come out the other side still believing in goodness. I finished my tea and went inside. Tomorrow I had coffee with Mrs. Chun. A book club meeting in the evening. Lunch with Tom on Tuesday. Hospice volunteer work on Thursday. A full life. A good life. Not the life I'd planned. Not the one I'd imagined when I stood at that punch bowl 15 years ago and fell in love with a widower in a crooked tie. But mine. Authentically mine. I got ready for bed, turned off the lights, and lay down in my room with the soft blue walls. And as I drifted off to sleep, I thought about Gregory one last time. I did it, I whispered into the darkness. I survived. And more than that, I learned how to live again. Somewhere, somehow, I knew he was smiling. The next morning, the sun rose on a new day. On new possibilities. On a woman who'd walked through fire and come out the other side not burned, but refined. And that woman was ready for whatever came next. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. The people who hurt us don't get to write our endings. We do. And I was writing mine with grace, with hope, and with the unshakable knowledge that choosing kindness, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, is the most powerful thing we can do. That's how you win. Not by destroying your enemies, but by refusing to let them destroy you. That's how you honor the people who loved you. Not by holding on to pain, but by living the life they dreamed for you. That's how you survive betrayal. Not by becoming bitter, but by staying soft enough to bloom again. And bloom I did. In ways I never expected. In ways Gregory would have loved to see. I bloomed. And I would keep blooming for the rest of my days. The end. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. If this story touched you, moved you, or taught you something about forgiveness and resilience, please leave a comment below. Share your own stories of betrayal and healing. Let's create a community where we lift each other up instead of tearing each other down. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I share stories like this every week. Stories about real life, real pain, and real triumph. Because we all need reminders that we're stronger than we think. That love wins. That kindness matters. And that no matter how dark the night gets, the sun always rises again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, your story isn't over. The best chapters might still be ahead.